It is June 12th, 2025, and after 2 days of talks between the US and China in London, Trump has declared that we have a deal, that everything is resolved. But if you really look into it and you look at what Beijing is saying, it seems as though they're agreeing to continue talks, right? To put in place a framework in order to continue pursuing the opposite of the 145% tariffs that Trump was just announcing against China a couple of months ago. But are we going to see an actual deal in which the US lifts some of the key technology related restrictions that it currently has on China and allows China to actually buy the equipment and the supplies that it wants from the US? So, what does that mean for the ongoing tensions? Well, we got into all of the latest with a special guest earlier. So, let's take a listen to that conversation now. Joining me now to discuss is Carl Za, a geopolitical analyst and the host of the Silk and Steel podcast. Carl, thanks so much for taking the time to join me.
Thank you, Rachel. Thanks for the invite.
Now, I want to get into the latest here as Trump took to Truth Social on Wednesday to post that the deal is done between the US and China. He did this notably in all caps, and he said that any necessary rare earths will be supplied upfront by China. Likewise, we will provide to China what was agreed to, including Chinese students using our colleges and universities. So I'm not exactly sure what he means by the what was agreed to, but we do know that the US and China had 2 days of talks that took place in London. So how do you view what seems to be this optimism by Trump that everything's all fine and good while we know that the US is actively preparing for war against China?
Well, first of all, it's a ceasefire, not a peace treaty. What from the Chinese side, they have said they have agreed to a framework to de-escalate. In other words, China has agreed to talk. there's no concrete deal being signed. One of the things that really freaked out the Trump administration is the rare earth shipment. The China has stopped the rare earth shipment coming to US. In fact, it was a global ban. China just stopped export of rare earth altogether to any countries because they know if they export to Japan or South Korea, they're just going to re-export it to the United States. And the rare earth is very important in that goes into everything. It goes into cars, it goes into weapons, it goes into missiles. One of the report from New York Times says that the China's health of the rare earth shipment is crippling to the U.S. Military industrial complex because there was a huge. So samarium, one of the critical minerals, it goes into the F-35s and a lot of the missiles. And there's a report that there has been a mass depletion of the existing stockpile. Now you got to wonder what causes mass depletion, and then you read further down the article, it says, "Oh, because U.S. has been shipping a lot of missiles to Ukraine and Israel, and that caused a massive depletion of the U.S. arsenal, and they're not able to replace right now because they need the critical minerals from China." And this is actually a problem that U.S. had noticed back in 2009. Like in 2009, that U.S. think tanks have been reporting to the U.S. Congress, hey, we need samarium and we depend China for this critical mineral. And at that time, the U.S. government actually set aside subsidy to support mining of samarium in Washington state. And then during the Biden administration, they spent somewhere up to like $30 million to set up this industry because in order for them to compete with the China price, because the China can produce this very cheaply. And then during the Biden administration, they set up another company in Texas to do the same thing. And that's when the Washington company that had set up realized, oh, whoa, what's going on? There's not enough market for our product in the United States. If you set up another company, we're not going to be able to compete, even with the state subsidies. So they closed down, and the operation in Texas hasn't taken off yet. This is why U.S., after all this time, after almost a decade, or more than a decade, of warning, we have dependency on China, nothing was done, and nothing was accomplished. U.S. still depend on China for this critical mineral to power its military industrial complex. And this is what really panicked the U.S. establishment, is that they can't go on to prosecute war around the world anymore. And this is why Trump was screaming at China. And from Trump's statement, it looks like the recent banning of Chinese students, revoking of Chinese student visa to come to United States study, is literally what Trump think is a trump card in his negotiation with China, right? I mean, like, they claimed it was all for national security. It's because these Chinese students are stealing our secrets, but really it was used as a negotiation tactic. Recently, Justice Department was releasing some really crazy stories about Chinese researchers smuggling in bioterrorism weapons into United States, and it turns out the stuff they're importing is like something that's already present in North America, and they're doing it for research purposes. So Justice Department was really just going after them because Trump has this idea that he can use this as a negotiation tactic to force Chinese to come to the table. And we also know that the critical minerals, they're used in the car industry. And in fact, a lot of the US automakers were thinking about moving production to China because they can't get those rare earth magnets coming out of China. But so far, the Chinese ban does not extend to parts that contains those magnets. So they're thinking about moving auto parts production to China in order to at least maintain production. And this is what led to the second round of talks in London. And so far, it looks like we don't know the exact details yet, but from the various things that was being leaked to the press, it looks like China will grant license to the U.S. automakers for those magnets. So we know at least their production can continue, because I think there's something people misunderstand about Chinese intention. China is not out there to try to cripple United States economically. China do not want to destroy United States. This is something people in Washington probably find hard to understand, because even with all the tariff, present day U.S. is still the number 3 trading partner of China. Now top trading partner of China is ASEAN, EU, and now United States, after all the tariff has been applied. But China don't want to kill their customers, right? China want US to do well so they can continue to buy Chinese products. So it's not China's intention to cripple US economy by depriving them of these critical minerals. But although I think they should have withheld from defense contractor. I mean, the world peace will ensue if they just stop shipping Sumerians to Lockheed Martin. So right now, there are certain things that China want in return, right? Before hitting the talk, China was very clear. We want to make sure this is a reciprocal relationship. It's a give and take relationship, and we have to treat each other as equals. What China wants is relaxation on some of these export control that United States hold on critical technologies. Just right after Geneva, Trump actually upped the ante by banning NVIDIA AI chip export to China, and threatened any company that use Huawei's AI chip. Essentially what Trump was saying, any company use Huawei chips, even if they're Chinese company doing business in China using Huawei chip, they will be in violation of U.S. export control, and then they will be placed on blacklist by United States. That means that they can't access to U.S. banking or anything that has deal with U.S. dollars. And it's pretty crazy. And then the U.S. banned the engine export to China's Comac C919 because the China's latest they started producing their own passenger jets, but they still depends on import from United States for the engine parts. Trump banned the engine export to United States to China, and Trump also banned a bunch of export of nuclear reactor component to China's new nuclear reactors. So on one hand, Trump claims that I really care about trade deficit. I want China to buy our products. On the other hand, Trump is not letting China buy anything that China wants to buy. You know, right now the top export of United States to China is soybeans, right? And there's only so much soybean and corn China can buy, and currently because of the U.S. restriction on trade, the U.S. export to China look like that of any third world countries. U.S. is exporting raw commodities to China, agricultural products, and getting manufactured goods back because U.S. has banned all the high tech export to China. This is something China wants to relax. We're gonna have to see if the Trump administration follows through. So far, we have no details. We just it looks like they have agreed to in principle, a de-escalation. So probably all the latest Trump sanction that was applied since April, I expect they will be rolled back. And in return, China is going to grant license for export for these critical mineral magnets to U.S. automakers. Whether they're going to resume shipment to Lockheed Martin, we'll have to watch and see.
Yeah, that's so interesting. And I appreciate you bringing that up because I feel like that's something that's kind of lost in the dialogue, right? Exactly as you were saying, Trump will come out and go, oh, well, we need to fix the deficit. And it's like, okay, well, open up the market, right? Let China buy what they want to buy. But what the US always does is they say, oh, we have to cut off this, cut off that from China over national security concerns. But then, as you were also noting there, they're also heavily reliant on China for rare earth minerals for the military industrial complex, which for the US, that's all we've got at the moment, right? That is our prime industry, yet it's still so reliant on China. They've known that this is a problem for a while now. So, what do you make of this position that the US is in? And I guess to a certain extent, does that almost give Beijing a version of a trump card of saying, hey, we could cut off trade with you in certain industries and you, I guess, wouldn't be able to wage war against us? Because that's what so many of these neocons in Washington are fighting for and pushing for. And even Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, telling the Pentagon to come up with a plan to wage war against China. Do you see that as all just talk, or is the US literally so arrogant that they think that they can start a proxy war basically with the materials that they get from China?
Well, there is a lot of hubris, right? I mean, they the U.S. Indo-Pac commander was talking about, we're gonna flood the Taiwan Strait with drones and unmanned vessels that they would turn into a hellscape for the Chinese. But when I watch this, what do you mean drones? Do you know who's the world's top makers of drones and drones components? And right now, the biggest drone warfare on earth is actually the battlefield of Ukraine. And in Ukraine conflict, both sides, both Ukrainian and Russian side, they're making their drones from the Chinese components. They both depend on the supplies from the Chinese drone making components. And so the idea that somehow United States is going to outproduce China in drones, this is fantasy. And this is why one of the reason China is restricting the rare earth shipment. It's not to try to cripple United States. It's to put United States on notice. Hey, by the way, we have you. We have you by the balls. So don't go crazy. And right now, U.S. is like the one that's saying, oh, they're coming out to get us. There's going to be a war, and the China is the one says, excuse me, sir, this is the Wendy's. Well, this is the Wendy's. Like, let's just calm down and let's talk and do business. You can purchase your burger here and do your crazy talk outside. And United States, they the I think one of the thing is the establishment elite in Washington. They have been so used to U.S. being the top dog in the world, being the unipolar power, so superpower, that they feel very comfortable when they're confronted with the fact that there's a rise in China and you challenge the U.S. hegemony. This is why they're going they're lashing out. Basically, they're lashing out against everything, including like China's Belt and Road Initiative. They see that as a plan to take over the world. Again, it's like 100% projection of the U.S. mentality, which is a zero sum mentality, onto what China is doing. What China is actually offering the world development and infrastructure, which everybody needs. Whereas U.S., the best we can do is more military bases and more weapon shipment. Um, right now, U.S. don't hold the cards. That's a problem for all the tech restrictions that U.S. placed on China. China has found workaround. There's a recent interview with Huawei's founder, CEO Ren Zhengfei, and he said, well, he was being very humble. He said, "Oh, United States overestimate Huawei's capabilities, where our chip is still one generation behind. But we're trying to catch up. But what we do is we find workaround. So if our chip is not as good as NVIDIA chips, we just use more. We just cluster them together, and when our computing power, we don't have enough computing power like United States, we optimize our algorithms, like what DeepSeek did. They optimize the algorithm to use less compute. So China will find ways around, whereas United States, they can't find a way around the critical minerals. And even though they knew the problem since forever, and there's nothing they could do to fundamentally address the problem, because United States, they can't do industrial policy. China could do industrial policy because China has a government that's structured to do industrial policy. United States government, it's of the oligarchs for the by the oligarchs for the oligarchs. It's designed to funnel money to the top 1%. It's not designed to restructure the society or even reindustrializing America. And this is why they even though they knew the problem exists, they knew they have a critical dependency on China for the U.S. war machine. Yet it took them how long since 2009? It took them 16 years, and they still haven't fixed the problem. And that problem is not going to fix in the next 5 or 10 years. In the meantime, China will find ways to power ahead. This is why China has the upper hand in this negotiation. They don't depend on United States. They don't depend on United States as much as our Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent think they do. Bessent says, "Oh, they need us. They need our money. They need our money." No, they're the one with all the goods. They can consume their own goods. They can find new market for their goods. The problem is, what's the United States going to do at the end of the day when you don't have the goods, when you have empty shelves? That's a more critical problem. The critical minerals is just one small part of it. And in fact, the U.S. economy today is still reeling from the effect of the Trump tariff from April, even though Trump has rolled back somewhat. But the disruption to the supply chain is real. And right now, there's a lot of uncertainty around how the tariff war will end up, because right now Trump have put a 90 days pause, right? But it's not over. Nobody know what's going to happen after 90 days. And a lot of the U.S. big businesses are putting off investment because they're adopting a wait to see how this tariff war is going to end up, and that means if there's a widespread freezing on hiring right now, because businesses are just trying to wait and see, and this is really bad for the economy, because business really hate uncertainty. Trump has introduced a lot of uncertainty into the business environment. How can you make your business investment decisions for the next 5-6 years when Trump can flip his policy in 90 days? This is a sharp contrast again with China. China, compared to the United States, is very stable right now. And this is why they have been able to attract investment for the last 40 years.
Yeah, and I'm glad that you bring that up, because that's exactly what I was kind of reading about in the reports, talking about, even Trump's announcement of oh, we've got a deal, it's figured out. There's a lot of business owners going, okay, we still don't know what's going on, right? You're saying, oh, there's going to be a 55% tariff on China. Well, we still don't know exactly what that applies to or how that works. And speaking of kind of adding to the chaos, as you've got the US right now, it's waging an all out proxy war against Russia, it's preparing for some sort of conflict against China. And then on top of that, it's also directly involved in the Middle East. In a way, Trump is so unpredictable, but then in another way, he's completely predictable. And as we're seeing right now, when he comes out and he says, oh, yeah, we've made a deal, everything's good. And it's like, okay, you guys agreed to talk. Well, China agreed to talk with you and to keep talking. It's like, okay, it's not always exactly how he presents it. I know that there is certainly a lot at stake here all around, and I really appreciate you taking the time to join me today to break down all of the latest here. Carl Zaw, a geopolitical analyst and host of the Silk and Steel podcast. Thank you so much for your time and insight.
Thank you, Rachel. Thank you for inviting me again.
If anything in this video resonated with you, be sure to like it, share it with your friends, leave a comment. And as always, don't forget to subscribe. And if you want to keep up with all of my work, make sure that you're subscribed to my page on Substack. That's rachelblevins.substack.com. That's where you'll find ad-free videos and new weekly episodes of my exclusive series for paid subscribers called Sanction. You can also check out Sanction on my page on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Rachel Blevins. As always, thank you all so much for all of your support, and I'll see you next time.